Nityanandam, my name is Sri Sarva Rupananda. Recently, a political party, a political group in Tamil Nadu had made they made a poster and invited everybody to join an event where they are offering a sacred thread to pigs. See, basically how it is, in Hinduism there is a tradition when you get initiated or when you start a particular lifestyle of it's like Gayatri initiation it's called, or there are different initiations. You are given a sacred thread to indicate and give you the right to practice that particular custom. So what are the practices which you engage in? Basically things like you will not take non-veg. There's a certain mantra, uh, a sacred statement which you chant 20-30 times a day, and you take bath. I know it might sound funny, but it's things like that, as simple as that, are part of the process. So the political party is offering Yagnopavita, or the sacred thread, to pigs, and they are inviting everybody to that event. See, first of all, when you offer Yagnopavita, the guru offers it to the disciple, and then that disciple represents the guru as he represents the lineage of that guru. So when they are initiating pigs into that, in the attempt of marking Hindus, what they are doing, they are basically telling that these pigs are our disciples and they are going to carry out our party. So basically maybe they are short on volunteers for their party. That is why they are recruiting pigs now for their political party, and that is why they are offering Yagnopavita to pigs, and the pigs are going to basically represent their whole lineage. That is one thing. See, the fundamental thing which they are trying to do is they are trying to insult insult Hindus. But what they fail to understand, even pig has been worshipped by us as an avatar of Vishnu, Varaha avatar, and has been given Yagnopavita. But their context is not that. Their context is purely to abuse. Now I'm going to share some insights which I have regarding why they are doing it, how it started, and where it has to end, and what is the way out. Okay, see, first of all, there is a fundamental belief in present day India that there has been historically there has been a lot of discrimination among various communities of Hindus. To start with, sorry, there was a interruption in between. So basically the fundamental belief is that there has been a historical evidence of lot of discrimination between various communities in India, and right now the communities which were really oppressed are standing up, and it is something which should be appreciated. This is what people believe, or the mainstream media and education have made people to believe. But I'm going to share some historical background on what happened and give you an alternate insight with all the references I'll give you in the description. See, first of all, there are four communities or four traditions in Hinduism. One is the Brahmins, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Shudras. The main four Varnas, we call them. Varnas or class, you can say. They are basically four lifestyles, and it is a fluid thing. You can anytime change from one to another. That is how it has been traditionally. Brahmins are people who have knowledge. They would be particularly practicing professions such as they would become priests and would practice law or administration or into educational fields and research and sannyas, all those kind of paths. The Shudras would be typically the people with the skills like engineering, surgery, manufacturing, metal related works, architecture, all those kind of skill related fields. And then there is Vaishyas. Vaishyas are basically businessmen. They are traders, they engage in trading. And finally the Kshatriyas, they are the warrior clans, and they are usually the kings and warriors, and they go into the administration part. So all these four varnas, as we call them, they have a role, and you cannot have a society where any one of them is left behind or left ignored. And there was a balance between all these four, right? I'll give you an example. As per the British records, by the way, I will give you references also. The Brahmins, they had the access to the knowledge, but they don't have any wealth nor land. So in fact, the Brahmins were respected the most, but they were the poorest, number one. Second, the Shudras, they had skill, but they didn't have like a respect of a priest. How you would respect a priest? That much they will not get. But let's say a Shudra is a doctor, so he would get a respect of a doctor, but he will not get to the level of a priest. But based on his skills and his contribution to the society, he might be more respected than a Brahmin. Then, and also Shudra would generally not have much of land and property. Then the next class would have, that is the Vaishyas. They are people who are in trade and commerce. They would have wealth, but they will not have access to the knowledge, nor will they have power. Finally, the Kshatriyas, they have power, but they don't have wealth nor knowledge. For wealth, they are dependent on Vaishyas. For knowledge, they are dependent on Brahmins. For skills, they are dependent on Shudras. Shudras are dependent on Kshatriyas for protection. They are dependent on Vaishyas for giving them employment. And they are dependent on Brahmins for education, basic fundamental education. Similarly, Brahmins don't have anything. They are dependent on the donations they receive from other communities. Right? In fact, if you see year 2005 census of Karnataka state of India, you'll find the poorest of all four, plus all the scheduled tribes and scheduled caste. The poorest of all 6 categories are the Brahmins. The per capita income of Brahmins is the lowest as per 2005 census. Of course, if you see other years also, you will find a similar thing, but since I have a reference for 2005, I am sharing it. And the census is not conducted very frequently also. It happens in, let's say, 5 or 10 years. That is number one. Another thing is the Yagnopavita, over which the whole dispute is happening, was given to all 4 of them: Brahmin, Vaishya, Shudra and Kshatriya. All 4 were eligible for Yagnopavita as per Kamika Agamas. But maybe other traditions, and also in Agamas there are different different systems. Like Shaiva Agamas will have a different understanding, and Vaishnava, other Agamas will have a different approach to this. But fundamentally, there's nothing like they cannot have it. The whole society of this 4 Varna system lasted for 10,000 years. See, I'm making a point here. A system which lasted for 10,000 years, and there is no evidence of any kind of civil right, a kind of a civil war or a collision between the various groups. In the entire history of India, you look as much as you want to look, there is no evidence. Only during the British time you see anything of that sort happening. Why is that? My question is, I'm asking to our viewers, you can comment on this. Why is that? Fundamentally, what happened was, in 1832, the Britishers had destroyed the education system of India so that they could create a class of Indians which were Indian by blood but European by their souls. And the people thus created would serve a purpose of helping them establish a kingdom and run it and administer it. After that, what they did was, they wanted to run the economy. To run the economy, they wanted, see, basically what happened, if you see the economic statistics of that time, the GDP of India had been continuously falling down. GDP of India, China and all those countries, and that of other countries was continuously rising. GDP basically means the gross domestic production, which is the output of a country. It is an indicator of how well the economy is doing, how well the economy of the country is doing. So there was a constant decline in the GDP of India and a constant rise in the GDP of European countries, especially Britain. they had a industrial revolution during that era, and to feed their industries they needed input material. To source those input material, they had India as a huge market which would provide them the raw material and also would be a consumer of whatever they produce. To make sure that India would be a consumer to whatever they are producing, they implemented what we call in today's terms an inverted duty structure. Inverted duty structure means that anything you manufacture here in India is more expensive than you selling the raw material out of India and importing finished products. That is achieved by a complex taxation system where the taxation is so high on finished goods that it is not able to compete. Furthermore, anything which is imported from other countries, it is given a certain subsidy to make it to compete. That way the Britishers made their products all the way from London come to India and you know, they could sell those things. That is how they destroyed the whole economy. Furthermore, they did many things. They stopped the education system, so the skill transfer stopped and was badly affected, if not stopped in for various various cases. They stopped the publication of books. The stipends were stopped. The kings and rulers who used to give grants to gurukuls and educational institutes, that also stopped. Now you might be wondering what's so great about Indian education, why am I talking so much about it? So there was a survey carried around by, there was a survey carried around in 1822 to 1826. It was a 4-year survey, and basically what they did was, they did a statistical analysis of how many schools are there, how many colleges are there. The term they use for colleges is higher learning institutes. If I give you an example, alone Rajamandri had around 247 colleges. See, every village had a school, and places like Rajamandri had one college per 5 villages. And on an average, they had something like one college per 10 villages. Okay, so now the question is, what was taught in these colleges? Things that were taught like surgery, architecture, engineering, shipbuilding, metal extraction, metallurgy, and weapon making, and carpentry. See, still carpentry you might not appreciate, but you have to see the kind of carvings that were done during that era. And law, ethics, all these fields were taught in these universities. I will tell only about the technological part, which is, let's say, surgery and architecture. Surgery I have covered in a separate video. I can, you will find the link, where they were doing as complex surgeries as plastic surgeries, which is no way a joke. So that kind of a knowledge we had, and that kind of an education we had. And the education was so extraordinary that the British collectors who did this survey, they suggested that this system should be replicated in Britain. After replicating it, they actually replicated it for 100 years, and then again they went back to their lecture system of education. But in this 100 years, they actually uplifted their society and brought education to the commons using the Gurukul education system. So basically you might be wondering why I'm bringing education. Where was I? I was in Yagnopavita, a sacred thread, a pig, and a party which has adopted a pig as a representative of their lineage, their kula. And suddenly I'm going to education. See, it's all interconnected, so just hold on to this video. Then I'll give you an example how it is very much connected. See, they destroyed the education system. They implemented an inverted taxation system. They made mining illegal by, they just basically made mining illegal. Even salt manufacturing was made illegal at a point of time. Everything as if it had to be imported or had to be manufactured by one of their big companies. So that is what they were doing. In this process, the whole Shudra community became very, very backward. Very, very backward economically. They lost so much. See, for example, in today's world, all the manufacturers have various associations. Like one is FICCI, Federation of Indian Commerce and Industries. Similarly, there is CII and so many groups are there. During that time also, the Shudras had many guilds, and their guilds were actually very powerful. They were power centers. But during this whole destruction done by the British, all the guilds got destroyed. Because of this destruction of the guilds, they lost all power. See, economically they lost power, and they lost power as a group. One more thing we have to understand about the Shudra community, which is the skill-bearing community, which has all the engineers and all the doctors. You cannot imagine a life where you would be disrespecting a doctor. That is common sense. Or you cannot imagine a life where you would be saying that I am not going to allow entry to the architect of a temple. Because how is he supposed to make a temple if he is not allowed inside the temple? But right now what we observe is that the Shudras are treated or are understood to be treated historically as an extremely backward class, which is not true. I have an evidence, I have a pramana, I can say. If you see the documents of the research which was done in 1822, 70% of the school going kids were from the Shudra community and scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. However they used to label the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes that time. They labeled it as other castes. So 70% were from the Shudra community. Can you say that they were denied education or they were exploited? If majority of the kids who are going to school and are getting educated are from Shudra community, how can we say that they were denied education? That does not make sense. Furthermore, if you see the skill set which they had, it's like amazing. When you read about it and you check out the original, original documents, you will find more about it. I'll give you an example from architecture. If you see any of these temples of India, the big temples, like one is the Tanjore temple. It's the biggest granite structure in the world. It was made, the architect of that place, his name I don't remember, I'm sorry, his name had some Raja in it, that much only I remember. His father was a Brahmin, his mother was a Periyar. Periyars were the leading architects of that era. I'll give an example of the Periyar community. Actually, I'll give you another example. The leading surgeons of that era, the people who could do a full plastic surgery, full reconstructive plastic surgery, they were called Nais. They were from the Nai community. They were plastic surgeons. Let's say your nose was cut and it was completely burnt off. They could completely reconstruct a brand new nose for you. And I've shared details about it in a video. So that kind of a community, in today's era, they are barbers. They know only how to cut hair. They don't know anything about surgery. It's because the whole education system was destroyed. Also, if you look at the textbooks of that era, for example, I was looking into the agriculture textbook. If you read the second verse from one of the textbook, it says that someone who has studied the 4 Vedas, Vedas are the primary Hindu text, sacred scriptures. So he's saying if you have read 4 Vedas and still you think agriculture is inferior, then you will die a death of utter poverty. It is going to that extent and saying. So basically, respect for each other, respect for each of the trades was built into the education, and that is why we lasted for thousands of years without any conflict. And I'm going to share an exact thing which happened and which will give you the essence of this video today. See, in 1872, A.O. Hume, the founder of Indian National Congress, he was the collector of Madras and also the founder of Indian National Congress. He was the collector of Madras Presidency. Madras Presidency represented 1/3 of India, almost 1/3 of India. It had Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, parts of Andhra Pradesh, Kerala. he passed a notification making it illegal for Periyars, who were the temple architects, by the way, the leading architects and the acharyas who taught architecture. So I don't know how many of you have actually seen the glory of Indian architecture. To give you some perspective, like Tanjore Granite Temple, it was made 700 years ago. The record is still unbroken. And what is big about it being granite structure is, granite is the hardest rock. It is not a joke to carve anything in that. That is number one. Second thing is, architect, when I'm using that term, is not only an architect. He's basically interiors and architects everything. So he would have an involvement in the intricacies of the carvings also. That is one thing. Another thing is, the temples, they had some kind of a different technology altogether. I'll give you an example. There's a temple in Andhra Pradesh where there are many pillars, and sunlight passes through those pillars and produces a diffraction pattern, and two waves of light cancel each other and produce a black region. That black region just comes behind a Shivalinga, the deity. And no matter how you stand in front of the Shivalinga, that black shadowy thing does not go. Because it is not a shadow, it is produced by diffraction of light. It is a very complex science. It's not really complex, but it is something which the Western world had found out only in late 1800s and then 1900s. So such temples we have 700, 800, 1,000 years old, and to make it out of pillars, big thick pillars, it's not a joke, because if you have any error you cannot move those pillars. They are big and they are fixed. So it's not a joke, and the pattern produces all throughout the season, whether it be rainy season, winter, summer, whatever. It works all the time. So surely they must have some kind of an extraordinary intelligence and some extraordinary, or they had some extraordinary divine insights. Either way, they were worthy of appreciation. There are temples whose pillars are able to produce musical notes, 24 musical notes. Like that I can go on and saying, like in Cambodia there are temples, the main Angkor Wat temple, one of its wall is 2 kilometers long, 2,000 meters long, and it's completely engraved. Carving has been done by hand and by small tools. The whole story of Samudra Manthan. And mind you, none of these have been made by slaves. You cannot have slaves do such a emotional work with so much of involvement, with so much of passion. And there are various records of people and their experiences. See, basically even the very act of carving for a temple was a path for you to get enlightened. So the whole motivation and context for somebody to carve for a temple was completely different. He was celebrating his art and offering it to the divine. That was it. Now why I am mentioning this Periyar thing, this political party, the person who is the main ideological backbone, who is the founding father of this whole movement, calls himself as a Periyar. And he's not one by birth. Another thing is, this word is a mysterious word. There's an English word which I think again is derived from Indian languages. It's called pariah, P-A-R-I-A-H. It means an outcast. And Periyar, some say the word actually means drums, some say it means someone who makes some kind of a cloth, but actually they were architects. That one thing is undisputed, because there is a engraving and recording in the Tanjore temple that the chief architect, his mother was a Periyar. Likewise, there are several things which we don't know. For us to know that, we need to go to Indian Office Records Library in London to find our own history. Coming back to the topic, see, in 1872, A.O. Hume passed on a notification making it illegal for the Periyars to practice the trade of temple making. Slowly they declined and they became poor. there were many other reasons why they became poor. Like I said, inverted taxation system, various restrictions and licenses, so many things. Not one reason, so many reasons. But this was a direct attack on the Periyar, that making temples was made illegal. So what happened? They became poor. In 1930s, the movement started by Erode Ramaswamy, who is often called Periyar, who started a movement of basically this political party which I was referring about, and he was supported by the British. And today's world, it is widely believed that the Brahmins have oppressed Periyars, and because of them, Periyars, Dalits, which is actually a fictitious term or a coined term, giving a not, because basically there's no traditional existence of the word Dalit. It's basically compiled by the people. They just created a word. So all this Shudra community, which was the trader, which had a certain skill, that whole community became very backward because of the various trade and commerce restrictions put on them. But the blame was put on Brahmins. That is the cunning thing which Britishers did. If you see 2005 census, Brahmins are the poorest. Per capita income of the Brahmins is the least. The notifications, all of them were passed by the British, and because of which these Periyars and all these Shudra communities became poor. But the blame falls on the Brahmins. This is what the Britishers have done and destroyed. This is how they have destroyed the whole community. See, they did not only divide Hindus and Muslims amongst each other, they also divided Hindus amongst Hindus and made them fight so that they could rule and enjoy. And still we are suffering, and these people are the very same people who think they represent that Periyar. See, understand, that Periyar was a big architect. He was a big architect, someone whom you can admire. You understand? Someone who had made big temples. These people have lost their identity. They think they have been exploited. But fools! Yes, you have been exploited, but not by Hindus, not by Brahmins. You have been exploited by the British. So there's a whole lot of convoluted logic and convoluted understanding of reality, which makes the Periyars, or all these people who are just pretending to be some kind of, it's just a marketing term actually, because Periyar rhymes with Paraya, which means outcast. So, it's just a strong branding statement which gives they are fundamentally not from the architectural community. Yes, they might have been Shudras and practicing some kind of a trade, but they have always received the best of the society. 70% of the school going kids were Shudras. 10,000 years we lived together. 100 years the British rule. Only the last 150 years, they completely destroyed us. If we lived along for 10,000s of years without any evidence of violence, why do you bring it now? My question is to that party, all the workers, and I'm telling you guys, have a big image about yourself. You're not a victim. You're people who have carved and made the biggest temples of India. You are the most celebrated architects. Live to that identity, not this false identity that you were exploited by the Brahmins. And actually, I'm not a Brahmin, to be frank. I have to tell you honestly, I'm basically from a Vaishya community, which is a trader community. My whole point is, see the funny thing. It is the British who made the notification which destroyed the Periyars, the Shudras, and Brahmins are the poorest in the society. But the blame of destruction of the Shudras is going to the Brahmins, and who is enjoying? The British. And still it is continuing. Why? Because of vote bank politics. They are enjoying, they are earning their votes. That is why they are still continuing to do this. Now why are you doing it is my question is that. See, if you think you are going to put a Yagnopavitam on a pig and it will be a great work of intelligence, fool. By that very act you are making yourself look like an idiot, completely mentally retarded. Completely mentally retarded. Man, basically you're telling that the pig represents your Vamsha, your lineage. He represents your party. So are you so desperate that you don't have any more party workers because you have a completely ideological bankruptcy that now you're recruiting pigs? Guys, wake up. You're not a pig. You're the world's topmost architects. You're people who are master surgeons. You're people who used to make the world-class wood steel. One of the best steels in the ancient era. Even now, if you compare a sample of wood steel to, this steel, IS 2062, grade A, grade B, whatever, the standard mild steel. If the strength of the standard mild steel is, let's say, 220 MPa, this would be easily around 200 MPa. So you guys are representing that tradition. Stand up to that. Don't get fooled by these parties. Don't get distracted by what the Britishers have vomited and written an alternate history. Now there's another thing. Oh my god, that's so frustrating. These people, they actually buy a theory of Aryan invasion theory that basically all the Shudra community, all the engineering and medicine and all the skill bearing community, they are Africans, and all the Brahmins are basically Europeans, white Europeans. I don't know where they got this idea from. White Europeans who migrated from Europe, and they enslaved it and they tortured them. Man, there's no reference in the entire tens and thousands of years of history of India that anything of this sort happened. There's so many references of so many sadhus who were actually thieves or who were of some other community, and they gracefully changed. Even the great saint, I just missed the name, bowed down to a Chandala. So there's nothing like Brahmins never gave respect or anything. Hey, come on, 2005 census, Brahmins are the poorest. What more you want? I think if the people of the community start engaging in their trades, in their professions, and starting excelling in them, they will do a lot good to the society. I don't think they are any way positively contributing to the society by a mentally retarded thing of tying a string around a pig. If at all you want anything good with the pig, please don't eat it and let it live. Be vegetarian, get Gayatri Diksha and become vegetarians. That is my strong, sincere, compassionate, heart-to-heart word for all the party members of this party. If you have anything, just call me and I can answer all your questions. I have no problem with that. I'm very sure many of you would have a lot of curiosity and seeking, and you would like to know more about it. So please subscribe my channel and stay away from these mentally retarded leaders and celebrate your true lineage. I'm sorry, actually I want to add one more thing. So one of their leaders, his name I forgot. His name is something Veeramani or something, I forgot. He has a college, it's named after Periyar's University or something, and they proclaim to be the first university which educated the women's university. And there are if you look at the original report of 1832 which the Britishers had compiled, the Gurukul education system and the whole higher learning institutions had so many women, ladies who got educated, and the top acharyas of so many of these colleges were women. What are you even talking about? I appreciate your contribution to the society, but let's come on the ground and know some ground realities. I'm going to share this 600-page document with all of you, which has all the references, very authentic, to your satisfaction. Ask as many questions as you want and I'll answer them. So thank you for tuning in. See you later. Nityanandam.